Hello everyone, welcome to our workshop. Today we will be learning about how we can integrate VAPI with our Voiceflow, and we will be creating a restaurant order bot, and Alex will be guiding us throughout this period. For those people who are unfamiliar with the Voiceflow, it is a platform that allows us to create an AI assistant. With VAPI, by default, you can create the assistant, but sometimes you need some additional control, and Voiceflow comes into this picture. It will offer you an agent designer, which lets you control the entire conversation through a user-friendly interface, which will open a lot of opportunities for you to easily handcraft your agent to fit your business need, integrate with any other platform through its full APIs. We have also received numerous requests from our community members for the documentation on how to integrate it. So we decided why don't we invite someone from Voiceflow who can guide us and do that for us. So I'd like to welcome Alex, who is a talented software developer as well as a content creator, and we are very thrilled to have him with us today. Also, just one more thing, we will be having a Q&A session after this workshop. So all your question will be answered properly. So don't worry about that.
Okay, super. Thanks for having me, Sahil. And again, hello everybody. Nice to meet you all. So nice to meet the VAPI community and to be doing this workshop. So today the plan is we're going to start off with a live demo of the end product with VAPI. And then we're going to go through a little bit of building the agent on Voiceflow itself. So the actual sort of a high level overview of the platform, but also of how we can build the agents with the blocks using AI in combination with APIs and other things. And then we're going to go into this VAPI connection. So showing how I linked Voiceflow to VAPI, the repo, how you can get it set up yourself. And then we'll finish off with talking a little bit more about building AI agents with Voiceflow and those kinds of extensions and things like that. But without further ado say, let's get started with the live demo. So here I have my VAPI dashboard. So just to give you a heads up, this is sort of the look of the Voiceflow agent and the platform. So I'm going to go back to this Voiceflow agent and we're going to be able to observe it while we're having the call with VAPI. So please confirm to me that you guys can hear this call when it starts.
Hi there, welcome to Voiceflow Cafe. How can I help you today?
Hi there, I'd like to learn a little bit about your menu, please.
What can I tell you about the menu?
Are there any coffee that you serve at the restaurant?
Yes, we do serve coffee at the Voiceflow Cafe. Our signature coffee is called the JavaScript Jolt. It's a triple espresso shot with a splash of vanilla code syrup and a dusting of binary cocoa. It's a perfect pick-me-up for coffee lovers. It's priced at $4.99. Is there anything else I could help you with? Would you like to learn more about the menu, or book a reservation, or order takeaway?
Can I book a reservation, please?
Okay, let's book a reservation. What time would you like to book?
Can I book on Wednesday at 2 p.m., please?
That time's available. Can I get your name?
My name is Robert.
Okay, great, Robert. And can I get how many people you would like to reserve for?
I want to reserve for 5 people, actually.
Yes, Robert, you are booked for the Voiceflow Cafe on Wednesday at 2 p.m. with 5 guests. Is there anything else I could help you with? Would you like to book another reservation, learn about the menu, or order takeaway?
Can I order some takeaway, please?
What would you like to order? Our menu has the JavaScript Jolt, the Quantum Quiche, the Raspberry Pi Tart, the algorithmic apple strudel, and the binary berry smoothie.
Can I order 3 apple strudels and 1 binary berry smoothie, please, to be delivered to my house?
Certainly. You have successfully ordered 3 apple strudels and 1 vanilla-based milky. We will deliver it to your house as requested. Thank you for your order. Is there anything else I could help you with? Would you like to order more, book a reservation, or learn about the menu?
I just had a question. Can you tell me a little bit about the function step in the Voiceflow platform, please?
The function step in Voiceflow allows developers to create custom logic and operations within their AI agents. It can be used to create, configure, and use functions on the canvas. For a library of pre-made functions, you can check out the function marketplace. Is there anything else I can help you with?
In Voiceflow, what kind of APIs are there available to build voice deployments?
Voiceflow offers a suite of APIs, including the Dialog Manager API, Knowledge Management API, Knowledge Query API, Analytics API, and Transcripts API to build voice deployments. Is there anything else I can help you with?
No, that's all, thank you.
Goodbye.
And there we go. It hung up, and that was the demo. So, hope everyone thought that was pretty cool. So, if we're going over the high-level theory of what has happened here. This is a Voiceflow agent. So, classically, you can interact with Voiceflow agents through a written text box. So, that's how we use it most often. We can send text back and forth. So, like, I want to book reservation. And then it is going through this flow chart like diagram. So that's why it's called voice flow. And it goes through a bunch of reasoning. There's tons of different types of steps. So things like text, images, but you can also do things like capturing input from a user, both just capturing their whole response, but also intelligently getting part, like extracting part of a response. Imagine, so there when I was extracting the name, that was intelligent. And then you can do things like logic. So obviously basic conditional logic. So an example of conditional logic is up here. I'd have a check to see if you're booking for a party greater than 15 people. And then it will tell you, hey, we need a deposit from you. But Voiceflow also offers things like functions, API calls to do external changes. So I screen shared it there real quick. But we can actually see that Robert's booking that I just made, got added to an Airtable. So Airtable is just an artificial example, but you could imagine routing this to another type of platform, maybe like I don't know. I'm not a restaurateur. I don't know what they use for reservations, but you could probably, if it has an API, you can interact with it through Voiceflow. And the great thing actually is that I'm able to build out this flow however I want to customize what I want to do. So certain parts were hard coded and scripted. So like, okay, let's book a reservation because we don't need AI there, and reducing where we need and don't need AI will keep us on the rails. But for things like explaining the restaurant items, I fed it just a big list of our restaurant options available. And then, but instead, if I wanted to have like a big chunk of knowledge that it's pulling from, I actually uploaded the entire Voiceflow documentation, and it's using a Voiceflow feature called the knowledge base. So on a high level, that was sort of a bit all around the place, but it's a platform where you can build out your agents through laying out blocks, connections to those blocks, and you can do anything that you want, logic, you put AI where you want, you can write code, and it all runs in the cloud and gives you easy interactions with it. So first we're going to walk through real quick the entire logic of building this agent. So agents in Voiceflow start at a start block, and then we have this step that says the text we wanted to give, and then there's a bunch of options. This is the main menu that chooses like where you want to go. So these are filled with intents. So Voiceflow is all about making the agent development experience easier for you. So sort of abstracting away all the kind of things you would have to write if you were making an agent yourself with LangChain or in Python. We do all the common AI tasks. So one really common one is intent classification. That's understanding what the user wants to do. If I say, can I get a table for dinner tonight? It needs to understand that that is me asking to book a reservation, so that's the path it should go down. So in Voiceflow, there's a big robust system called the intents system. So here I made some intents to book a reservation, to learn about the menu, and to order takeaway. For each of them, I gave examples of what it could be, and then the Voiceflow platform will actually specially train or specially fine-tune an AI model for you of an NLU to classify what intents you're using. You can also use large language models to classify intents, but NLU is really fast and it does the job well in our situation. So then there's this choice block. So as I say, it's going to figure out what intent to go down. So let's say we were trying to book a reservation. Booking a reservation will go up here. It will ask us what time we want to book. And then we're actually going to do some really smart AI prompt chaining. So I'm going to get the AI to interpret what the user said to check if the time is correct. So here we're going to do some prompt chaining and say the user wants to book. It says the user's message. Then it says what hours the restaurant is open and asks the AI to answer either a 1 or a 0 if it's a valid if it's a valid time. So if I said, for example, hey, can I book at 1 a.m. on Monday? It's not open then. So the AI will then go down a different path. So that's a really powerful feature of Voiceflow. It makes this kind of prompt training really easy, and you can build out the visual graph of what happens. So if, for example, it is a valid time, it says that time's available, we can get your name. If it's not, though, we actually are going to chain that into another AI step that, based off what the user said, proposes a new time to book. And then it will ask them if that time is good, and if it is, it will set it as the time they're going to use, and it'll go down the flow. But if it's not, it will ask them to suggest another time. Up here, once they have agreed on a time, we're actually going to do intelligent capturing. So I said, when it asked me what's my name, I said, my name is Robert. So the entire sentence I said is, my name is Robert, but my only actual name is just Robert in the middle. So Voiceflow also supports a really interesting feature called entities, which lets you sort of define, hey, I'm looking for a type of data. It's like a name. It's sort of like types in classical programming. So here the type name lets us extract just the user's name. So when I say my name is Robert, it extracts just Robert. So yet again, that's the kind of features that Voiceflow likes to have to make building these AIs. And then it does some JavaScript conversions. So here we're running some code to parse whatever the person said into an integer, or using AI to convert like the number of people they said to like decimal numbers. We're then doing this logic, and then we actually have a really powerful thing. We're able to send an API request. So here I'm sending a request to my Airtable to add a booking for the person. So we can go down the other flows. They're similar. They're less fleshed out, but the order takeaway is just an AI step, and then same thing for the learning about the menu. But for the knowledge base, this is really cool. So often when you're building an AI agent, you want to be able to feed it your own like custom business knowledge. So Voiceflow has a great feature called the knowledge base, which lets you upload documents to it. And then it's pretty much a vector database. So it handles all the parsing of putting all the chunks into the right spot. And it will extract all the interesting information out. And then it actually supports you being able to look it up. So if I say like, what is Voiceflow for? It can give me an AI answer based off the sources in the documents. And again, that's just really useful for building AI agents, because now you don't have to spin up your own vector database. We have one that's ready to go, fine-tuned, and you can access from the blocks inside directly. You can just check a box up here. It says use knowledge base. So really powerful. And then, so this gives us the ability to build our agents to have exactly the behavior we want to do. It's a little bit less fast to get started than a basic GPT, but because you actually have full control and you predictably know what it's going to do, the paths it can go down, you can do really cool things like doing API calls, having functions, having code in JavaScript, and all this jazz. But this is really cool when you have Voiceflow like this in a basic form, where you can write text and you can chat in a text box. But what's especially powerful about Voiceflow is the ability to integrate with any interface you want through our APIs. So I showed them really quickly when I pulled it up here. But Voiceflow actually has, first of all, we redid our documentation recently, so now there's tons of great documentation here about how to build your agent on Voiceflow. So if you, after this demo, are interested in trying to build your first agent, definitely come look at the documentation here. But in it, there's also the API reference, and we have tons of different APIs to interact with every part of your Voiceflow agent. And the Dialog Manager API especially lets us actually interact with Voiceflow programmatically as if we were sending messages. So here when I'm sending a message, I say like, oh, I want a reservation. This is using the similar to Dialog Manager API, but you can actually capture these messages and send your own replies wherever you want. So we use that in a lot of our videos to build things like custom interfaces that can put Voiceflow into Shopify, into Discord, into Minecraft, into Unity. I've made all these things, and there's videos about them on our YouTube. But today we're going to be going over integrating with VAPI, which is also possible. So if you didn't know, VAPI supports the ability to bring your own large language model. So down here, you can choose your LLM providers, VAPI, OpenAI, Together AI, all these options. You can also use a custom LLM, and as long as it adheres to the OpenAI specification for sending agent requests, it can actually be used by VAPI for the conversation. So on a high level, what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be using the Voiceflow Dialog Manager API to send requests back and forth between Voiceflow. We're going to send VAPI will be managing the conversation, and whenever the user says something, it will send it to Voiceflow, get Voiceflow's answers back, and then VAPI will speak it back out. So VAPI is acting as a voice interface around our Voiceflow agent. So now we're going to go into quickly how that's done. So one of our great colleagues at Voiceflow, Nico, let me screen share this separate screen, has actually built a repo for you. So you can actually see it here. It will be shared after the event as well as the template that actually sets up an integration with Voiceflow and VAPI. So it has a demo example that you import the agent to your Voiceflow project. You get your Voiceflow API keys and then your project information. You can set up the environment variables. Then pretty much you start a server on your machine or whatever server you're running on. This server is going to be used as a proxy because we need something, because VAPI currently doesn't have a native integration to Voiceflow. It's maybe going to something that's going to come later and it would be really cool to have. In the meantime, we need VAPI to send our request to an endpoint. And we need to change a little bit of formatting so that the VAPI, what VAPI is expecting and what Voiceflow is expecting connect. So that's what this server that he made does. But pretty much once we run it, we can then open an ngrok, which just gives us a link to access that like externally. And then on VAPI, we can actually set our LLM that we're using. So this is, we're patching it with a patch request to set the URL. So what we see here in the end is that this is the URL of my server that's running to serve the VAPI, or to serve the Voiceflow agent to VAPI. And then the one important thing I will mention while we're at it is because the way Voiceflow works is that it expects the agent to always talk first. You have to make sure to set this setting in VAPI that makes assistant speaks first with model generated message. So just make sure to check that. But again, if you just follow this tutorial, that will be set up correctly. And then boom, we're actually ready to go with VAPI. So I will now go over real quick how the actual code works. And in the meantime, while I get this set up, Kim or Sahil, do you guys have 3 questions I could answer while we're transitioning from one part to another?
Yeah, I will queue up. Kind of a great question, maybe just understanding like where Voiceflow sits. So there's a question around like how Voiceflow compares to like using like a Make or Zapier and why you would use it in terms of like connecting with
Yeah.
VAPI.
Yeah, for sure. So Voiceflow, the big advantage that it presents over a Make or Zapier is that we're really focused on the agent building experience. So it's not just the ability so that when one event happens, it triggers another event, and then it's sort of a pipeline of events that happen. It's all about that one agent that runs the whole conversation in it. So you can do those things like call external APIs and get input and fill out forms and things, but it lets you do it in a conversational agent and brings you all those AI features you want to make a more organic way of interacting than just a data pipeline type product like Make or Zapier, if that answers the question. What's the next one? I saw you added one to the queue.
Yeah, for sure. The next one is around how does a VAPI and Voiceflow integration look in terms of UI? Like, would someone interact with this through like a chatbot, voice bot, call? Like,
Yeah.
what can you do? I guess.
Yeah, so because VAPI is the one sort of managing this conversation, it's just using Voiceflow as its backend. So you can actually deploy this to anywhere you can deploy VAPI. So if I had a phone number set up, I could do a phone number. Here I can call on the web. I'm sure there's various different ways to deploy your VAPI agents. But we have had tests at Voiceflow where we use VAPI on a cell phone, and it's actually really cool. But you can deploy anywhere you can deploy VAPI usually. Voiceflow is sort of in the back end. So VAPI is like, you can think of VAPI as your front end, the proxy, the code that we need to interface as a middleware, and then the Voiceflow agent as the actual back end running the logic. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Nice. And then one question from Eugene about connection. When you provide a URL for custom LLM, you need to choose a model. Like we have DM API. I've already tried to build it. It works with ChatGPT 3.5 Turbo. What does a model refer to?
Oh, yes. So the model is so that's just a VAPI thing. When you create an assistant, you choose the provider. So that's like, it could be OpenAI. And then from there, you choose the model. Here, when you have custom LLM, the model is really it's just a label. It means DM API is just us saying Dialog Manager API so that when we look at the agent, we can know like, oh, this is like this is the Voiceflow connection working. It's nothing special. But Voiceflow itself, I'll actually take that as a segue, supports using any large language models you want. I mean, for now, there's always more being added, but you can also bring your own model if you want. Like you can use custom functions to do it. But built straight into the product, we have lots of different models. So we have GPTs, so 3.5 Turbo, 4 Turbo, 4.0, 4 Mini is being worked on, I think. We have Anthropic models, so Claude, all of these models. And then we also have Gemini, and there's always more models coming. So on the VAPI side, you don't actually need to choose a model. You can choose whatever you want from Voiceflow. And the even better part is we can actually use different models in different parts of our agents where appropriate. So when I'm basically doing basic things, like at the top, I'm acknowledging that a user has done their order. I don't need to spend a lot of AI tokens. I can get a fast response. I'm going to use GPT 3.5 Turbo because that's really cheap. But for a more complicated thing, like validating that the time is correct, that's a more complicated task. So here I'm using GPT 4 Turbo. And that's a really powerful thing you can do. So for example, sometimes different parts of agents, like I know Anthropic models are really good at hallucination reduction. So you could use an Anthropic model here, an OpenAI model there. And again, having it all on Voiceflow reduces all the overhead. If you were writing this yourself on your own like coding platform, you would have to program each like a connection to OpenAI, connection to Anthropic, a connection to Google. But we prepared this all for you already. And I hope that answers everyone's questions. I'm seeing some good reactions in chat. Okay, now let's segue to the next part, which is talking about this code a little bit. Whoops, that's my downloads folder. Okay, so the code is pretty simple for anyone familiar with programming stuff. Pretty much we have it's just acting as a proxy. It's just from, it's Express, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it's a JavaScript Express server. And for VAPI, you need to just have an endpoint that is chat completion. So we have a /API endpoint that we can go to. So this API endpoint is the one we're feeding to VAPI. So if we go to the README, we can see that the URL we're giving is the ngrok URL, which is like the server we're running /API. So that's where it's going to be talking to. And then from there, it will route us to our custom LLM chat completion. So DM API, the endpoint will be, where is it? Wait, am I lost? Yes, there we go. We have the router and it sends it. So any request that goes to /chat/completions will then be routed through this code. So this on a high level has some functions. So some basic things like getting domains, which is just getting information from the .env file. So this is like a template.env that you could have when you're installing it yourself. And then it is going to have the main API function. So it gets a request from VAPI, and then pretty much it extracts the user's message from the request, and it also gets the user's ID. So in Voiceflow, all conversations are tracked. A really big advantage of Voiceflow is you don't actually have to manage the user state yourself. We keep the state in the cloud, so we manage it for you. All you have to give us is a consistent user ID so that we know like what conversation is going on. And then depending on what's going on, we can either start the conversation like net new with a launch request, and then we keep track of the conversation state in the server. And then pretty much what we're doing is we're sending our post request to the Voiceflow API. So this is the /state/user/interact endpoint. So that's the one I showed in the documentation above. We also pass in some authorization, and then we pass the actual, so this is the base request. And then we can also pass the payload of what the user said. So we put the last message's content, which is received from VAPI. We extract that and send it to Voiceflow and say, hey, the user answered with this message. We then send the request, and then we also, the rest of the code is just formatting to adhere to the OpenAI specifications. So we have to change the chat ID to like chat completion. We give it a random number, or not a random number. We give it the trace of the time where the completion is done. And we just do some formatting. So here we explain exactly what model we got it from, the time it's created at, and we make like VAPI deltas, which is just the way that VAPI tracks the data being shared. And then we also print it. So we can actually see on our server, one second, whoops. We can see on our server the logs of the conversation with VAPI, which is really cool. Did I stop it? I might have stopped it. It's okay. And then if it ends, we're just going to hang up the call and finish that conversation. So this is really not a complicated thing. In the future, this is the kind of thing that could be built into VAPI. But for now, this is just some simple code you would run on your server. It's really lightweight to then go back and forth with VAPI. So hope that makes sense for everybody. And yeah, so this proxy stuff is what's up. And oh yeah, so I will take 3 questions now.
Cool.
People have about the
One question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. One was around if you can make Voiceflow call a human if the agent is unable to answer a question. And there's some folks in the chat who called out that VAPI has a forward call or transfer call function, but
Yes. Yeah. So you could have it. So Voiceflow supports a thing called custom actions. I can show you. So what you can do is you can actually use this to send custom data back to your Voiceflow agent. So if I 1 second, let me screen share my screen. So when we are working with Voiceflow, we can send custom actions. So what you can have actually is you can have a system where your AI knows that it can't answer the question. Imagine you're doing support and it's just like, hey, I can't answer this question, or you have some counters. The really nice thing about Voiceflow is you can build that logic out however you want. So you can use an LLM that's analyzing the conversation to determine if it's time to hand off. You can have a retry counter. You can do whatever you want, but you can set a custom action like handoff human. And then actually, what your Voiceflow agent can do is that when you're handling all the traces, so just Voiceflow replies with a bunch of traces, you can check what type it is, right? So you can check if it's text or if it's speak. What you can check is if the type is handoff human, you can actually use VAPI's APIs and response system to, like they mentioned, do transfer call. So you can trigger that to, like, you can get your Voiceflow agent to trigger that. And then once you're handed off to a human, it's Voiceflow is not touching it anymore. Like Voiceflow is all about the automation side of it. And then you can make up either your proxy that's interfacing with the Voiceflow agent, and then it will trigger the handoff, and then that works. So hopefully that answers your question. Yeah. Super. And are there any questions about the code? I see one from Bo. As a non-coder, do I need to edit or write any of this? Will the repo to install cover most of this? So the repo to install will cover most of it. You shouldn't need to know how to do any of the programming here. We're just sort of explaining the conceptual ideas around using APIs in Voiceflow. So if anyone wants to customize this, they fully can. But all you'd have to do is, if you wanted to deploy this yourself, is have somewhere that is running this proxy server. If you're interested, I strongly recommend you join our Voiceflow Discord and reach out to either Kim or Nico to get some more info, because I think we'll be making some content about this and adding it to our docs. But you don't need to know exactly how this code works, but it lets you customize, like, a good conceptual understanding of how Voiceflow APIs work and how VAPI interacting with VAPI works would be great. But in theory, no. All you need to know is follow the setup instructions that are really, really clear. I think I showed them before, but they have like pictures of where you need to import, all the settings you need to do, creating your VAPI agent, setting all the requests and stuff. So no, should be good to go. Hope that answers your question, Bo. Yeah, you'll get a GitHub repo, and then you can host it on Replit or Heroku. You can ask ChatGPT. There's also tutorials on this, like running an Express server. And then whatever you're hosting will give you a URL to expose to the public, and that's the one you will feed to your VAPI agent. Does anyone have one more question? I see one from Marim. Is there any Voiceflow integration through React components to use it white label, for instance? So, great question. So Voiceflow actually supports, by default, the ability to deploy white labeled. I think as long as you have a paid plan, I'm not exactly sure on the details, but you can actually customize chat widget. So you can write whatever you want. You can turn off the powered by Voiceflow at the bottom. I think it's because right now I have or my screen is this one, or I don't know. I think it's because right now I'm on a free plan testing, but you can customize whatever you want, blah 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 blah. And then there's a snippet to embed it into any website you want. So imagine let's go to vapi.com, vapi.ai. We want to add a Voiceflow agent. Just go to the terminal, inspect element. We can go to the console, remove this, and boom, now we have our Voiceflow agent here. So if I stop inspect elementing it, so now I can just talk with it. So, can I book a reservation? And you can see that right now it's white labeled, so there's nothing here, and you can customize it however you want. And there is also an open source React chat. So Voiceflow React chat. It's a public repo, open source. So you can all use this, which is pretty much the code that runs our React, and you can change it however you want. So you can, yeah, there is React components. To answer your question, yes. And then you can also build your own custom things. So if I go to my repositories, I've made React interfaces for Voiceflow. So here I made EduChat, which is it is built in React. See here, I make my own chat boxes and I interact with it through the APIs. So yes, there is that. So that's like a programming question. And then we want one more question before I go to some conceptual stuff around Voiceflow and VAPI. That's a good question. Can the agent remember and reference the entire conversation? So you have full control over what memory you are handling. So if I want, there is a variable being tracked all the time of the conversation history. So if I say like, I want a reservation. Voiceflow has a variable system, and here we can actually see that there's a variable called Voiceflow memory, and it stores like, oh, welcome to Voiceflow Cafe. How can I assist you? User, I want a reservation. Assistant, okay, let's book a reservation. So this handles the memory. And then from whenever you're doing your AI steps, you can either have it just answer based off just the prompt, or you can use just the memory, and the most powerful is memory and prompt. And what you can even do is there is a system inside Voiceflow where you can, like, imagine you wanted to store all your user states. You could have a server where, for example, or like Airtable, where, I mean, Airtable wouldn't be that secure, but like you could do something secure to store information or users' past histories or recapped versions of them, so that when a user starts a new conversation again, with VAPI, right, you call it the same phone number, it will know it's the same user ID, and then it can preserve the memory. But again, Voiceflow is all about giving you the full control rather than, like, we don't have these pre-configured for you other than the pre-built-in memory that you can choose. But you can do that kind of persistent memory. And yeah, hope that answers your question. Okay, now I'm going to go to the last part where I'm going to go over some of the like high-level reasons you want to build a Voiceflow. So like building these kinds of agents, like I mentioned before, with things like just basic GPTs is okay. But what we really want is full customizability and control of what's going on. So we can build these flows of Voiceflow, we can build really complex things, but Voiceflow also has many great tools for that. So mention the knowledge base, there's also the variable system, but one I didn't mention is things like transcripts. So actually every conversation we're having is being tracked on Voiceflow. So here, this is the conversation I had before. So I'd like, is there any coffee? We can see the transcripts. We can actually see all the debug logs of the conversations that were going on. So like this is what the AI said. This is it handling the numbers. So like when I wanted to book with 5 people, API call successful. So that's really powerful. And if you want to collaborate or analyze like past transcripts, you can like, oh, let's say this one's really good. I can leave some notes for my friends like, hey, at Kim, this is a really good transcript. And that's pretty powerful in Voiceflow. There's also analytics that are really useful. So this is the agent we're having conversation with, so we can know like what are people asking to do, how much of the time does it know what they're doing, sessions, unique users, so things like that. So Voiceflow is like made for building these agents. And then, like I mentioned, there's the APIs, the web chat, so you can deploy quickly if you want. And then, yeah, APIs. And so that's building. So we have covered so far building we've done the demo, we've done building the agent on Voiceflow, we've done the VAPI integration. Is there any other sections I had planned?
I think we can bring it to Q&A. There's some questions in the chat we can start tackling.
Okay. Let's do the questions in like sort of groups of questions to get everyone's like memory started rather than just like opening the floodgates. So do people have questions about high level, like what Voiceflow is? What's the advantages of it? The reasons to use it, how you can build with it, things like that.
Yeah, there's actually one from Rip the Jacker. Would you be down to even like get him up on stage, and or do you want to just tackle it?
Let's just tackle it in calls. Yeah, I think Q&A is
cool. Yeah. So yeah, he's still missing the purpose or need for this integration. Can it help with user memory / conversation history? I think falls into that general understanding of Voiceflow.
Okay, yeah. So it can help with user understanding and memory and history. So to directly answer your question, yes, it can help. Because Voiceflow gives you the full control of what the agent is doing, you can do your memory management, so you can have continuous memory, you can have it stash memory away and then retrieve it when a conversation starts or things like that. But on a more high level, the reason you'd want to use Voiceflow, and this kind of integration is important, is to be able to craft your agent however you want. So again, rather than just going and having your system prompt and then having the model like talk however it wants and maybe have access to some tools, but not be able to do like some tools and some functions, but not be exactly predictable on if you wanted to go down exactly a certain flow or to do a more predictable thing, that's the reason you want to use Voiceflow. It's really important for a lot of enterprise customers, not only to have like an organic AI you can chat with like ChatGPT, but it's to actually have the control you need to make your agent that fulfills what you need your business to do. So things like API calls, answering user support requests, documentation. Support is a really common one with Voiceflow where you can take advantage of the good, rich knowledge base to actually get information, try to answer the user's question, use the smart agent building to build an agent that answers questions however you want. But then if things aren't going well, you can capture intents from users that they want human support, make API calls to submit tickets. So it gives you a platform to build your agents on, which in it can do good things like memory management, but can also do lots more things than that when it comes to like crafting agent. Yeah. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, and so Bo wanted to reiterate that Voiceflow is the brains and VAPI is the front end, but both can break away and tap into different apps, etc.
Yeah. So here, correct. Voiceflow is the brain, VAPI is the face. The way it's configured right now, it is just Voiceflow tapping into apps. We haven't used the VAPI tools and things because those are triggered by the LLMs that are interacting with it. So here, because our LLM is actually just our Voiceflow agent, it can call the tools that are programmed into it. So sort of like I mentioned, if you want to do like handoff to human, you can have the tool. If it's like a spoken tool, like an audio tool, you can have that triggered through VAPI. Or what's actually best is handling all the tools from inside of Voiceflow itself. So things like here, sending the Airtable request. I gotta make sure to revoke this API key after. That is handled from inside Voiceflow. And there's lots of different other things. I can just show off some other agents real quick. This is a Shopify agent I made. There's tools to learn about products. So that like pulls info from the knowledge base, that pulls order status from Shopify or submits support tickets. So things like that is what Voiceflow, but yeah, Voiceflow is handling the tools, but you can do anything you want with it. Yep. Hope that answers your question, Bo. But yeah.
Yeah. So maybe we can move on to some other questions here.
Yeah. Does anyone have any questions about like the reasons you'd want to make a voice assistant like this using VAPI for Voiceflow, or questions about
Yeah, I think
integrating?
there's one from Brayon around how most of this you can already do through VAPI. So like what would be the standout feature or piece of using Voiceflow and VAPI together?
Yeah. So not to sound like a broken record, but the main difference is the like handcrafting of the agent and exactly its logic. So you can do things like uploading data to VAPI and give it instructions and things like that, but it is all about the on Rails agent building. That is the core differentiator. So I see your question. You need a more focused example. I mean, I think the restaurant demo one is an okay example because here, can you talk? Sure. Can you bring up to the
Yeah.
stage?
Yeah, Sahil, if you want to have permissions to do that. Oh, here. Okay. Oh, I don't have permissions. Sweet. Okay. Thanks, Sahil.
Hey, can you hear me?
Hey there. Yes, we can.
Okay. Like I love Voiceflow. I actually use it for my chatbots for a number of clients, but I also use VAPI as well. So I was trying to figure out what the use case would be So the exact flow that you gave for the restaurant and everything, I could literally prompt that out. Like I've even prompted out one for doing basically getting pre-approved for a home, and it can go a
Mhm.
lot of different directions. Plus, if you put in your knowledge base, if you really segment it correctly using a good RAG process, like everything that I've seen so far, I can literally do that in VAPI without it. So
Mhm.
that's why I was trying to see like a really good example, because like the menu, I can segment the menu up very nicely, upload it into the knowledge base, and it can read all of it. So
Mhm. Mhm.
that's where I was kind of like, okay, I see kind of where you're going, but what would like a really good use case be to where this would really work well together. Like I'm kind of see the logic, but I'm trying to figure out one where it's going, okay, VAPI wouldn't be that good at this, and combining it with voice flow would be an exceptional partnership.
Yeah. Okay, and it makes sense. So sort of I hear what you say. Like the idea is with really good prompt engineering, you can have the conversation happening through VAPI, and you can use things like tools to have it be able to add an Airtable for your reservations and things like that, or be able to do memory with things like functions. Like these are things you can do both in Voiceflow and VAPI. But I mean, this is a simpler example of a Voiceflow agent because it's just made for a demo. But what
Mm.
you can do really well with like complex Voiceflow agents is you can have them go with their own like internal monologue, other than just being a LLM that's like giving out its answer directly. So things like the hard conditional logic, imagine it could be less practical to try to make the LLM do the calling to a tool and then do its reasoning itself, when really what you would want to do is write a function with JavaScript in Voiceflow that's like not a separate tool but built into the agent itself. Or things like internal chain of thought, like reasoning prompt chaining. There's also things in Voiceflow like the what's it called, hallucination reduction, where you can make big complicated flows that when they're trying to answer users' question, they take the answer, they LLM it with one LLM, they'll go off down a separate path, they'll like double check, they'll rewrite, they'll look up more information, which you wouldn't get if the LLM is doing like sort of one shot, like just spitting out its answer into VAPI. So it's like, so here you're right. A lot of pretty much everything we could do now, if you carefully engineered a prompt for a GPT, you couldn't do. But let me go show let me show a bigger example. This isn't like made for VAPI, but this is the Shopify demo I made. Here we have a bunch of different types of flows. We have a bunch of stuff in our knowledge base about like our policies, our Shopify orders, all these things being like the Shopify orders are automatically imported from my Shopify store, which is like an integration with Voiceflow. And
Mhm.
then each of these separate flows. So things like when we are learning about a specific product, there's actually a ton of like AI reasoning going on in the background before the user even hears anything. Like the user's answer is given here. This is all internal reasoning that we've built out that we want the AI to go down. The Shopify flow, there'll be a YouTube video up probably next week. But
Okay,
things like
now I'm starting to see like with the Shopify example. Now I'm starting to see how you could take it down a certain path, even to figuring out order status and things like
yeah,
that, because it plugs directly into the store. So,
yeah.
okay, now
And
I'm
it's
kind of seeing where you're going with it.
just the idea is that the agents themselves are like, you don't have to like the time spent, because also there's like the unpredictability of like, I'm sure your prompt engineering is legendary, Brandon, but even the most legendary prompt engineering these days with large language models, isn't enough to have a predictable agent that can like follow flows like predictably, consistently, that can interact with the
Yeah,
tools and
so
all these
basically what you're saying
filters.
is this is taking the strain off of an incredibly detailed long prompt. This is sort of taking the strain off of it and basically having flows within different directions so that it can move more smoothly, and also have sort of preconditioning of how that flow operates instead of just jumbling it all into one prompt, it
Yeah.
has more where it's sort of broken down, just like a RAG process. You don't want to just throw a bunch of information in. You really wanted it segmented out so that the LLM can actually read the data better in your chunks. So this is kind of that same format where it's like you can build out these different flows, and then you can build your prompt to have cues to go down to certain flows, and it's a smoother process.
Yeah, pretty much. And then you can do the hard-coded like logic you want, like the pre-scripted parts, as well as being able to combine LLM where you want. But yeah, on a high level, you got the idea, I think.
Okay, okay.
Thanks
Yeah, I
for your question.
definitely want to see the Shopify example. I think that'll, open my brain a little bit more because it's real small on the screen, so I can't really see like
Oh,
how
sorry.
the flows are going. So I think when you guys give us the template, that'll help me out a lot in
Yeah.
kind of seeing where it's going.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do love VoiceFlow. I use it, like I say, for all my clients. So to be able to kind of see how this flows with VAPI would be, yeah, that's going to be really nice.
Yeah. I mean, if you enjoy using VoiceFlow as a platform itself, the integration of VAPI, you can think about it as just putting it in a new place. Like we have really good text deployments right now, and VAPI is a great option for excellent voice deployments of VoiceFlow agents. For the same reason that text VoiceFlow agents are good too.
Gotcha.
But yeah, thanks for your question. Okay,
Appreciate it.
next up, Kim, have you fielded a question? Kim or Bo?
Yeah.
Can I
Oh,
can I ask a question? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, you bet. Yes, we can.
First off, thank you for this. This has been an awesome presentation, and really my mind's blown with just I guess, the amount of complexity that we can add to these workflows now. So, me personally, what I'm doing is I'm building sort of a personal assistant to be able to sort of, I can call in with VAPI and then traverse down several flows depending on whether I want to create a reminder or ask what my schedule is like for this day or what's coming up and everything
Mhm.
like that. And so just for someone that, again, I feel like we're on the bleeding edge with all of this, especially with large LLMs and AI and everything. But my question is, for someone that doesn't have a complex workflow in VAPI and is just being introduced to how to sort of leverage voice flow with VAPI, what do you suggest? Like, what's the pathway forward to start creating so these sort of complex flows? Do I create? Do I start in VAPI, get it all hooked up, and then go into voice flow and then begin the workflow aspect of it? Like, if you could walk me through, not
Yeah.
necessarily, yeah,
Yeah, for sure. So that's a really great question, actually. Thank you. Because I think that's probably something applicable to anybody who's in this call who would be interested in trying this out. So the best way to build this agent, and it's sort of how I built this one here, is to start in VoiceFlow. We always recommend an approach of crawl, walk, run, which is sort of the different phases conceptually of building complex agents. So you still want to start with a really simple use case, really simple agent. Often my agents I have are, let's say like assistant, and we're gonna make it a chat agent and then English, and we can create this agent. So you start off by making a really simple agent, and you can like have it say your schedule today is a meeting at 5 p.m. So make this really simple flow, okay? And then I mean maybe a little more than one block, but make it really simple, okay? Then you can publish this, and you can always test everything from inside VoiceFlow itself. So I can run this text here, and while I'm building, you should use the VoiceFlow designer itself to test your agent as you build it. You can test from anywhere. So if we go back to our more complicated agent, imagine I'm building this out up here, and I want to just test like specifically the user ordering flow. So I want to say like, just from this step. Let's say I want to be testing, it does the number conversion work. So let's say I want to order for 100,000 people. It's going to go here and it's going to say the right thing. So boom, I can test my agent up here. So start with simple agent, then make sure you get your VAPI proxy working. The one that Nico made, just set it up. So first step, I would make an agent very simple on VoiceFlow. Then make sure you can get the proxy working. So just run it on a Heroku or a Replit if you want, something like that. Get that working. Then simply like test to make sure that your agent is working. You can call it. And then your iterative cycle will be once you're able to call your agent, you don't need to touch VAPI anymore pretty much. You can change some settings like how fast it hangs up, the voice and things like that. But then all the building out you want to do is from inside Voiceflow. You can start adding more workflows. So this project is structured differently than other ones. But if I go back to Shopify one, right? A workflow is sort of like an ability of the agent. So the agent, this one is able to learn about specific products, orders, check order status, do policies, do product recommendations, do rewards programs, do submit a ticket. So you start off with one simple workflow. Then as you scale up your agents, you add more and more workflows with different intents you want to do. So imagine you call your assistant and you're like, hey, can you order me a table? Like you start off with like, what's my schedule today? You add a function that calls Google Calendar to check your schedule, and then it uses large language model to recap that. Let's say then you want to add an ability to like send emails for you. You can add second workflow. Let's say you wanted to add ability to book a dinner, a table for dinner for you. You can flesh these workflows out with different intents. You can add stuff to your knowledge base like custom documents. And then like as you build that out, it gets like more complicated. But the iteration cycle is like, first of all, very simple agent. Always when you're building and testing, do it from testing inside text, inside the designer with a test tool. And then when you're using it, you can use it through VAPI. That was a lot. I hope that answers your
Wow.
question.
Wow. Yeah, definitely answered my question. Wow. Just by my, you see what I'm doing? It's like I can see it. I can see
Yeah.
it. This is like something special. It really is. Thank you, man.
Yeah. I mean, and if you build it out, make sure to definitely join the Voiceflow community and share it with Nico and Kim and everyone who's there. And also like all the members of the Discord. I don't know, Kim, you can like plug the link again, but there's a big community of like developers on the Discord who are building smart Voiceflow agents, and you can get a lot of support with building those kinds of things with them. So definitely share it with us because I would love to see your project, Bo. Yeah, thank you. Okay,
Yes.
I think we have time for
Oh.
one more.
Yeah.
Sorry, Kim, I didn't hear you. Okay.
Oh no,
one
I
more.
was just gonna say I'll drop the links as well in the chat.
Oh, amazing. Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for a great question. How are workflows available on
Yeah.
the main
Just
agent?
actually, sort of on that thread, while it's still on everyone's mind, do people have questions about how you would get started building these kinds of things with VAPI Voiceflow, how you can set this up yourself? Because we would really like to see a lot of activation coming out of it to build cool projects that people want to use with VAPI and Voiceflow. So let us know if you have any questions about that we can answer now. Several people are typing. In the meantime, Kim, do you have a quick one that you've seen maybe in text?
Yeah, so there's one around like actually Daniel already tackled that one. It's around like the payload, like trace stuff. So if someone clicks on a page, can we personalize the experience from Voiceflow?
Yes. Yeah, so
that's
great question. I'll run it through really fast. Right now, the video about Shopify isn't out yet. So this isn't exactly VAPI specific, I think, because you're just calling the phone, but you could have different versions of your VAPI agent served. I'm not sure how like that works with integrating like voice VAPI into web and stuff. With Voiceflow itself, you can have whatever interface you're using to actually deploy the agent, be it the web chat or custom interface, can serve the link of the current page to your Voiceflow agent, which will then decide where to go and like do contextual response. So in the Shopify app I made, it's like a page slug. So whenever I get the page, whenever it loads it up, it tells me what page it's on. And then if it's on a special page, it will go down a path. So if it's on a policy page, it will jump straight to the policy section. For some rewards, it'll jump straight to rewards. So you can do that kind of thing. And yes, you can have that contextual answering. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, yeah. There's another question here from Matt. So when the conversation or call ends, could I set up a trigger to do a call end summary of the transcript and API to Twilio to text the caller with the caller requested data, for instance? Great
Yes.
question.
We could, amazing question. We could 100% do that with Voiceflow. And actually, I'm really glad you brought that up because that is sort of one of the applications that one of our previous question askers, like that would have been really good for that, right? Because we can control how the Voiceflow handles its hang up of calls. So here's this end of call and it instantly ends. But imagine we want to be a little bit more intelligent, right? What we could do, oops, I don't want this to end. Oh, heck. Well, let's say it goes down a different block, right? Like, thanks for your call. And then we could actually have, after that, let's say the reservation info. Whoops. We can have it handled here. so that it is actually, imagine, so right now it's just going to send in like a reservation, but you could do this so there's integrations that Twilio already built for Voiceflow. You can send them a text, you can capture their user ID, which is their phone number, and know that's where to send to. And then alternatively, so this works well if Voiceflow is the one hanging up. If the VAPI, if they hang up on the agent, you could either just not send them a text, because like maybe you want to ask at the end, like, hey, before we go, like, do you want a text summary? Or you can send it whenever you get the info from them, you can instantly send the text summary, or you can build it into your proxy code. And I'm sure VAPI sends some kind of call or whatever when it hangs up, either a webhook or something like that, to capture the hang up and then deal with it after the fact. But from inside Voiceflow itself, it could be really well built. Yeah. Hope that answers your question.
Yes. Great. I think we're at time. And yeah, I don't really see too many outstanding questions. So I feel comfy to wrap here. Sahil, pass it over to you if you have any other closing thoughts.
I think we're gonna close. Like we have already covered most of the issues. And if someone is still having any issues, they can just drop an support ticket, and we will look into it. Um, so thank you all for joining us today. We hope you find this workshop helpful and inspiring. Bye.
Thank you for having
Yeah.
us. Thank you everyone for coming. It was lovely talking to you all. If you look in the chat, I'm pretty sure Kim will send one more time the link to sign up for Voiceflow from this session, and a link to the Discord and stuff. There's also good resources online about Voiceflow to get started building. You can build for free for an account. You don't need a credit card or anything. So I really encourage you to try something. I mean, you can get this VAPI setup working paying 0 cents. You can just make a VAPI account and make a Voiceflow account and build a cool demo to get started. And yeah, how about you guys do that, and you either send it in the VAPI Discord and ping me, or send it into the Voiceflow Discord and share it with our community, because we want to really see people's cool voice agents built on Voiceflow.
Yes. Happy Plus. Share all your work in our Discord as well. And yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free to shoot me a DM. I've shared
Yes.
all the links.
And we will send an announcement in the VAPI Discord with the links to the code, the template, and a recording of this call whenever that's made. So keep an eye out for that. It'll also be in the Voiceflow Discord.
Yes.
Yeah.